Yo, what's happening, guys? Alright, so obviously I'm in a different location. I'm filming the intro and outro of these videos as I edit them. But this video ended up blowing out to be like 40 odd minutes long. So I'm not gonna make his I'm not gonna make his watch 40 minutes in one hit. I'm gonna break it up into two videos, but I'm gonna double upload it this week. I'm thinking I'll get the second one up Friday. So it'll be a double upload of the L67 stuff, but I kind of just want to get through this, finish the rebuild, everything like that, so I can start putting out some wagon content as well, now that I'm actually starting to get a few hours at this new job. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. I don't want to jinx it because it's going good, but I'm hoping to start doing some wagon stuff again and hopefully go drifting again soon. But over these two videos, we're going to do assembling basically half the bottom end. Crank in, rods, pistons, rings, all the bearings, just all that sort of stuff. There's a fair bit in it with torque specs and setting all the rings right and all that, so it blew out to be way too long. But I'm going to cut this here. I'm going to let you get into it. I'll talk to you at the end. All your bearings your main caps will come in. Your main bearings will come in one set themselves. Two of them will be your thrust bearings. So that's what stops your crank walking back and forth as it gets loaded up. It's what endures that sort of stress. And you'll see we got there's like a little keyway notch out on the actual bearing itself. And there's one on the block side. What you do, go in that side, rotate them through. Like so. And this one we keep aside ready for our main cap. Alright, so all these line up perfectly with the oil galleries, except this one, which needs to be offset very, very slightly. I sent my mate a message. The way that oil gallery is all good. That's not a stress. You'll still get plenty of oil pressure through it and it'll be perfectly fine. On your main caps, you got a little arrow there. That's pointing towards the front, and you'll see on the inside you've got a keyway, another keyway like the others, and that tells you that locates your bearing, just the same as the other bit. So what I'm going to do is I've got some more brake cleaner, clean cloth, still semi-clean cloth, just give that valley for the bearing good clean out. Alright, there's no shit in it, so the bearing can sit home nicely without any interference. And I'll go through, I'll do that for all of them. With actually popping your bearings out, try to make sure you don't cut yourself in the process, because engine internal stuff can be quite sharp. This bearing's pretty stubborn in there, it doesn't actually want to come out. Go. Slide it around enough to the point you can get a set of multi-grips on it and just grab it out that way. That's pretty well right to go. I'll finish doing that for the rest of them. The rest are a little bit easier because they don't have the thrust surface around the outside. So ow, got the screwdriver on my foot. And that's our last one clean. I'm just going Penrite because Penrite's what I go for everything else, but you use pick your poison of assembly lubes, but it's that stuff. This is going to protect your engine on that first startup when there's no oil pressure. And then I'm going to apply a generous amount to all the contact surfaces that our crank's going to run on. Get a bit extra for your thrust bearing. Make sure you actually put it on the thrust surface as well. While I'm doing other stuff, get ready. Yes, I've just got some motor oil. And what we've got here, we've got our brand new lifters, which for these we went Nason or something. Where are we? There. It's our little hole on the side. That's where the oil actually feeds into when it's in the car. Rather than trying to find something that I can sit them up like that, I'm just going to face that upwards. Make sure all of these are have that facing upwards, and I'm just going to fill this clean container with oil, and that'll help prime the lifters. They're a hydraulic lifter. If you don't prime them properly, they'll chatter and make all sorts of noise, and they'll sound like you've got an RB30. And I'll probably leave these sit in there overnight or something like that, just until they stop bubbling. I'll come around and I'll give them a little shake every now and then, knock some of the air bubbles up, but I think that should do just fine for bleeding them. Now we're basically just going to do the same thing again with the main caps. In the case of the L67, they're actually numbered, and they got little arrows pointing the way they got to go. And there you got number 4. So they're set out pretty easy, like you can't really mess it up. So for your caps, it looks like these are specific to each one. So cap 1, that marks right in the center, the little notch out. So I'll pick, that one's a little off center. I'll pick my bearing that's got the mark out, the little indent outwards on the center, and that's the one that we'll put in this hole for this cap. Making sure that both surfaces sit nice and flat. Now number 2 is your thrust bearing. Look at me here talking to you like I'm a professional. Now this one's pretty simple. There's only one bearing that's going to fit on this one. And we'll apply another generous amount of assembly lube to them. Now you got one facing forward. So your main bolt, they aren't actually torqued to yield, so we can reuse them. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Just going to go through, chuck them all in, and then we'll just slowly work that cap down using the bolts. Just got the rattle gun on its lowest setting, nothing too crazy. Go around. And now I'll actually go around with the torque wrench and torque them all down to spec properly. So because these are 4-bolt mains, if you've seen the teardown, you'd know, which this will be in a playlist, so you guys can go check that out if you need. There's also side bolts that go in, which I'm just going to get them started, and then I'll torque these all down at the end after we've sorted torquing down the main caps themselves. But I've gone and made a little mud map for myself of my torque specs for it, and because my cheap little torque wrench is only reads in whole numbers for the foot-pounds, not newton meters. The newton meters is all kind of fucked up little measurements. So start off with, it wants basically 15 foot-pounds or 20 newton meters of torque, and then I'll just spiral out like I do, like you do with most stuff that's good practice. And don't use a 16mm on these as much as you're tempted to. They're actually a 5/8, and try to get one that's matches the pattern, so you minimize the chance of stripping them, if you really don't want to strip a main cap bolt or anything internal wise. Brace yourself against the motor, and these are all pretty well at that already by the feel of it. Oh, I should be going that one. Second one with 40 Newton meters or 29.5 foot-pounds. So I'll just go to 30. Starting at one of the inner ones. Alright, now this is saying 35 degrees, 35 degrees, and 35 degrees in 3 stages. I don't have a degree wheel, but you can imagine when you're looking at your bolt, you got the opposite side will be 180. So from there to here, that's 90, 60. So it's only a very small amount. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go by feel. And see, I've got it nicely lined up. I'm just going to go bang. So I'm going to call that good. Another good practice for this is to just get like some white out or something you can put a little dot on the bolt so you've got an idea of how far it's actually turned. I think it's 105 degrees in total. Their homes with the rattle gun quickly on its lowest setting. These side ones are actually a 10mm, 10mm 6-sided. So just got that there, and they want under 10 foot-pounds. Then degrees to 42 to 48 degrees. I really don't think it's going to need to be that precise. I'm just going to slap it on 10. Go. Doesn't bind up or anything. It all feels nice and consistent. There's no play in everything, in anything. So yeah, I'm going to call that done. We'll start, probably start sorting out pistons now. Them in and try and just get the whole rotating assembly together. Alright guys, so if possible, I recommend having a tablet or use your phone. Online you can find your workshop manuals, and they go over pretty well everything for the rebuild process actually on that manual. So I've just got it set up on the tablet there so I can easily just reference it whenever I need to. But obviously you're probably not filming YouTube videos on your phone at the same time. But I'm gonna start, we'll start doing the conrod bearings, get them all sorted. Got my mate Birdo's coming around, give me a bit of a hand again, just so we can check ring gap and set up the rings and start actually really cracking in and getting it back together. Cracking into that, I'll give you a rundown on one of the bearings on the conrods, and then I'll just smash through, get them all done, and we'll check the ring gaps and all that once Birdo gets here. So let's get into it. Try to remember which way your conrod cap goes, because they will not be the same side to side. Good rule of thumb, see that little notch there, the little bearing guide. Just slide that out. Slide them towards that mark, and they should just slip straight out. But you'll see they're both on the same side. Good rule of thumb, they go to the same side. For these at least anyway. But because these are an item that they make them, then they mill the center out. you've got to have them facing the right way. Otherwise they're going to be offset and you're going to chew your bearings and they probably just won't fit at all. So again, another clean towel. Clean towel. Give them a wipe out. Get some of that old grease and oil and any bit of crap that might have settled under the old bearings. And we got our conrod bearings right here, which I believe, yeah, they're all exactly the same, top to bottom, for every single one. So nice and easy. Remembering to keep track of where your pistons come from, even as you're doing this. May not be super critical, but seeing as you're replacing all the rings and everything if you're going this far anyway. So why can't I open this? You gotta cut them open, be very careful not to scratch up the bearing surface, obviously. Just like we did with the main caps, they just slot in, line them up with your little keyway here, and no worries. And we'll do the same for the cap. Line it up. I'm finding it easier to just line it up with that side, eyeball that in, and then just push it, pop it home, and then give it a little tweak once it's in there. That's it, fresh bearing in. And just make sure you pop your cap back on the correct way. From what I'm reading in the service manual, see that little pressed, little outward marking? I think like your Ecotech pistons and stuff like that, they actually have a little notch on the piston that says which way towards the front of the motor. But on your conrods, if you haven't separated them and lost track of that, there's a little stamp mark there that goes to the front of the motor. Just try to remember which cylinder your piston came from, just in case. It may not matter, but I want to put them back in their original home. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. This is the shorter half of this video that I'm splitting into two parts, but it wouldn't have made sense if I split it any later, so you'll get the second half Friday. But anyways, if you enjoyed this one, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It goes a long way towards supporting the channel. Hit that notification bell and you'll get notified as soon as a video is up. And yeah. Thanks for coming, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one, Friday.